Hi, my name is Гэri Mei. The company, which was founded by me, is called Interactive Marketing and Consulting Services, or IMAX. My time in the automotive industry, starting with selling cars on internet leads, was 20 years ago. And for the last 12 and a half, September will be 13 years, we've been consulting with dealerships on digital marketing, website management, social media, lead generation, CRM, management, lead management. So that covers building out BDCs, managing internet departments, making dealerships more successful for those who contact online, which is heavily needed today and everything that's happening in 2020. And my experience also includes being at 3 different vendors, interacting with the auto manufacturers in the US and Canada, and covering every single one of their ad agencies. So my experience has been heavily in website, tools, administration, search engine optimization, search engine marketing. We were the first vendor managing social media for dealerships starting in December 2007, putting some of the first dealerships on the world on Facebook, Twitter, creating blogs, microsites, etc. And that dates back again to 2007, beginning of 2008. We have a love for the dealerships. Yes, we've worked with a number of the manufacturers in my time at Edmunds, Ismo Cars, and Evox. However, most of my commitment and most of my time investment ended up being working with dealerships, assisting with their digital presence, making sure for the progressive dealers that they were prepared to take market share. And very happy to say that the last 2 months, as COVID has struck the United States and globally, that our clients over the last couple months through the thick of the crisis have all been able to grow market share. Every single dealership that we work with has grown market share, and a good amount of them in March and April since the end of February have been able to grow or stabilize their unit volume. We have actually had clients grow unit sales year over year in the March-April 2020 timeframe. So we're very humbled with the invitation to be involved with this conference and assisting you in digital best practices for your dealership. And it's important for me to say that you having a commitment to your online store is very important, because it's not a marketing source. It is your dealership online. The team, the company, and me all have a number of very unique assets that we've given to the dealers here in the States. We have our own dedicated content team. There are 3 of us that are officially automotive media. So we cover the auto shows, and 3 of us have access to the press fleets. So we actually have been writing unique content for dealerships for over 10 years that is not simply duplicating press releases and OEM content. So we actually have people who drive the cars, shoot the cars, photo and video, write editorial, including for other publications. And so the experience we have with IMAX in working with dealerships, raising results, raising sales, is something that we're very passionate about. And we're looking forward to finishing year 13 and going on, especially through challenging times, because we started the business before the 2008-2009 downturn and grew the business 100% year over year for 4 years. And so it's something that we're very passionate about, is growing dealer business. And again, we really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. It's a pleasure to be with you. And what we're going to cover today, as you can see, the title of the presentation is the 7 Rules of Automotive Digital. And what we're going to be focusing on primarily is your website, your local presence, how customers find you, dealing with generation of sales and service leads, and how to measure effectively and make sure that you're giving yourself all the opportunities that you possibly can in this digital age. and especially right now in 2020 with all the things that we are facing, it's an opportunity for dealerships that not only embrace digital, but have a focus on digital and have a focus on best practices for their digital marketing, for their customer acquisition, for customer communication, for customer retention. Now, more importantly than ever, with the crises that we're dealing with in 2020 and more people at home, et cetera, and the changing dynamic of retail, these are going to be critical advantages if you can execute on these to improve your overall results and to really recognize that it's not a website is not simply a place to be, it is your dealership online. It's how more and more people are finding your businesses. It's more people are finding how to buy, service, take care of finance needs, etc. But also more importantly, the traffic perspective. How many more people are on your online dealership compared to in your dealership or even servicing for those of you who have service. So what we're going to step into first is the mindset of winning online. A lot of speakers, a lot of consultants will tell you the things that you need to do, and that's part of today's presentation that you're going to get from me. However, the mindset's very important to be aware of is, especially in consulting in the business we do with dealerships, it's making the fewest amount of mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes online. We're going to have campaigns that don't work very well. We're going to have campaigns that are very successful, measurably very successful. So taking the most amount of mistakes out to allow you better traffic, better conversion, better leads, better phone calls, etc., is a matter of people finding you in the way that they want to, finding your vehicles, especially if you're listing your vehicles on multiple sites, etc., and really how to make your website, your online dealership, the most valuable asset, the most valuable tool for people to use. So the first point here that you're seeing on screen is talking about strategies and advice. There's a lot of portals, third parties, consultants, trainers, advisors. The bottom line is you know your market. You need to execute. When you're looking at how to acquire customers and how to keep customers, you need to look at best practices and how they make sense for you and your business. So number one, trial and error. Make sure you're using best practices. However, you definitely need to constantly put out new efforts, very calculated efforts, and a few efforts that are, we have the expression finger in the wind, where you lick your finger and you put it in the wind, and which direction is the wind going. You need to take some risk, of course, in your advertising. But as you'll read here on the first bullet, it's very important to not just take every piece of advice. There are many people with digital automotive still emerging in Russia that can tell you basically what to do. What does Google say? What does Yandex say? What do the social media sites say? You need to use founded, proven strategies while you're looking at new opportunities and not simply going everywhere you possibly can. The thing to remember, the number one asset you have in real life is your people. The number two asset you have is your facility. The number three asset you have is your inventory or your service operation, your fixed operations. The same thing with some little bit of inconsistency is true for your online dealership. What you need to do is make sure that people can find the resource they're looking for quickly. So that's your staff, your inventory, your specials, your offers, etc. Those things are very important. The second most important facet, you're seeing here, the second focus area is customers, communication, your CRM data, your customer relation management assets. What does that data look like? Are you getting a lot of communication back from the customers? Are they opting in for text messaging? Are they able to look at all of the assets that are being sent via email? Are you doing effective phone calls? And is everything logged into the CRM software? In the case that your CRM software talks with your website, do you have the opportunity to see when a customer has returned to your website, and are you making them the right offer? Are you communicating, is your sales staff communicating properly based on which pages they're on, how many cars they've looked at, etc.? So if you have that technology where the website does talk with your software for your CRM, for your customer relationship management, your database, definitely you want to capitalize on looking at what do they do, what do they not do. Maybe they originally sent in a purchase request on a small car, but now they're actually on 4, 5, 6 van pages. Are they a van buyer? Are they a small car buyer? Are they looking at 2 cars, one for themselves, one for their child, one for their mother, one for their spouse? So it's very important to look across your data points and make sure you're being relevant, that your communication is ideal for them. Most customers are looking at multiple retailers where they can, and even private party, which is still predominant in Russia, they're looking at multiple places that they can acquire that vehicle. So are you communicating not just on your website, but is your email, text, and phone communication ideal for them based on their purchase intention? It's very important to recognize that the communication and your staff, once they've made up their mind on a vehicle, those are the most important parts. They can find a vehicle, a consumer can find a vehicle almost anywhere online. So it's really important to make sure that you differentiate, that your dealership makes it apparent that you're the easiest or the best place to do business with through your communication, how effective it is. Is it drawing the customer in for an appointment? Or is it simply communication that keeps the person away from the dealership? So looking at the results, the data, open rates, communication, callback rates, email back rates, text back rates, looking at, are we putting in the right links? Are we driving the customer to the right place? So it's very important to look at that, as well as talk with your sales staff, pull that information back, especially if not everything about that customer is being put into your database. So every salesperson is different. We all know that. Some people are a little bit better at storing information about the customer, the car, how they're paying for it, etc. And some people have all of that information, but they don't put it into your database software, into your CRM. So it's very important to make sure that there's an understanding across the dealership that measurement of that CRM data, the success, the contact rate, the appointment rate, the customer in the showroom rate, and the purchase rate are very understood through all of the different touch points. So look at CRM data, connect it to your website behavior data. It's very, very important. And what's the last point we're making here is measuring everything. And where most dealerships lose the ability to track is at a campaign or a source level. Keep in mind, if a piece of traffic, if a visitor comes to your website or finds your inventory on a listing site, the sourcing is not as important because that passes through. If they call, you know that's from the listing site. If they send an email from the listing site, that's going to be very easy to understand. However, if that traffic is coming to your website, are you tracking that? Or when you look at analytics, when you look at your website dashboard, are you looking at, or even your CRM, your database marketing, is that communication coming in from an untracked place? And I'll give you a live example here. Both Google Maps is pulled up as well as Yandex. And here you can see the example where somebody can find this dealership, Lucky Car, for example, and click on the website. So when this website is visited and you're looking at your analytics, it comes over as a direct visit. You can see the URL is typed in directly from Google My Business. However, if a UTM code is used, you're able in Google Analytics to see that that came from Google Maps or Google My Business. If you use a UTM code in Yandex, the same thing will come over. So when you're managing your business listing, and I'll give you an example here. When you are using your business listing in Google or Yandex, you have the ability to ensure that that tracking comes over properly. So for example, if I click this dealership here, this Ford dealership in the Duluth, Minnesota, Superior, Wisconsin area, and click on website, when it goes to the website, there's a URL tracker. And another way to show you that is in their business listing. So there's a UTM tracking, a UTM code that allows you to track that traffic into your Google Analytics. And then Analytics reports that in your source medium as a separate source. If you don't do that, it comes in as direct traffic. You don't want to do that when you're looking to see where your traffic comes and what's the behavior. So it's very important for you to track individual assets individually with UTM codes. That could be through social media, a link coming from a post, your Google or your Yandex listing, or an email marketing blast. So it's very important that each time somebody clicks to the website on a link you control, to use a tracking to see, was that the May 20th email campaign? Or did that come over from a post on Google on May 20th? Or on May 20th, did they come over from a directory site, a directory listing? So otherwise, you have a lot of your traffic going into your direct channel, and you can't separate that. So measurement is very important. So we're going to go from understanding how to start with a successful website to understanding specifically how important your website is. Now, we all know the investment and the time it takes to maintain your website, upload photos, the actual hosting of the website, etc. You'll see the first note here, and it's something you already heard me mention one other time in the intro, is that your website is not a marketing source. The listing sites are, a phone call is also a marketing source. A direct mail piece where you're sending out direct mail to people's homes, that is a marketing source. The radio is a marketing source. When somebody comes to your website, even though it's termed as source, it is your dealership online. So when you're closed in the evenings, if you're closed on a Sunday, if you're closed early in the morning, somebody can go to your website and look at your vehicles, understand if there's a service offer, meet the staff, look at the photos of your sales staff, your service staff, your technicians, your sales managers, your finance person, etc. That is your dealership online. So remember, Even though it's an investment, it's not simply a marketing investment. It is your dealership online today. And again, more people will visit your website than will ever come to your dealership. So that's point one about treating your online business properly. Number two, this is something you need to be tracking. However, you're not directly responsible for it. Your website company needs to make sure that your site is fast. It's secure. HTTPS in the website browser. The S means a secure site. Non-secure pulls up a warning today in the browser. Doesn't matter which browser it is. So make sure that you have a fast, secure site, that there's not code installed that's not relevant, that your files, pictures, videos, anything, audio tracks, anything that is not simple text on your website, make sure it's very efficient, small, light, compressed. You want to make sure it looks good on a mobile device. You want to make sure it looks good on a desktop device, especially if somebody has a 20-inch or 30-inch monitor. However, it's important to make sure that those assets are very light and not unoptimized. So compression is important. Optimization is important. If you've had multiple people managing your website, you might have different sets of code, tag managers, and other assets that are on your site. So it's important for sure once a quarter, once every 3 months, maybe at the least 2 times a year, once every 6 months, to have a technical inspection of your website. And this goes because anybody who has access to your site may be able to install code, or there's iterations or versions of updates on your website that even your website maintenance company may do. The second point is to make sure that your site is fast and light. And as a matter of fact, you can see over here on the third point that Yandex says low quality sites could be eliminated from search results. That's very important to know. That progressive loading is one of those very important aspects that you can do. What does that mean? As a page loads on a website, if there's a fair amount of scroll, let's say 50% of the website page is below what somebody sees until they scroll their mouse. It's very important to load the top 50% first, and then a progressive load or a latent load to the lower 50%. So the browsers know how to crawl the data. Consumer has to, with their thumb or with their mouse or with their touchpad, they have to scroll down on a page. So make sure, using progressive loading, that only the top assets load first and then progressively load lower. So if you have a page that has 2 videos and 3 or 4 photos on it, don't have all the photos and videos load, only the text and the video at the top. And then your website company can progressively load those assets that are below, what we call in the United States, below the fold, because in the old style newspaper, you had to flip the newspaper over or open the page and look down. So below the fold is the expression. So if somebody doesn't scroll, there's no need to have the website load that data and take it longer for it to render. It's very important, this is the second time talking about it, to have a secure site, or HTTPS. Without a secure site today, especially if you have a financial calculator, a credit application, anything else like that, not only do websites need to be secure and show the certificate to the customer that they're interacting with a safe site, the search engines are starting to penalize sites that are not secure. So in your browser, if you see that your website is notified as a pop-up or an indicator next to the website address not secure, or you only see HTTP://, make sure that your website hosting company places your website onto a secure certificate. So you have a validated website that is secure. Again, they're going to pull back, the search engines are going to pull back and put your website below other websites if you do not have a secure site. There are other large and important factors that will determine how your website is indexed in search results. However, those are the most important. The largest percentages of sites, dealership websites that we see that have loading issues that take 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15, 20 plus seconds to load, primarily is because photo assets and some code is not properly installed or properly optimized on their websites. So again, one of the first things you can do from this session and from the conference is have your website audited. And then something you can do once every quarter, once every 6 months is make sure through different speed tests. And if you have a consultant, if you have advisors that you can talk to that are technically savvy and can understand load times, load speed, etc., make sure that you're analyzing it with your website company as well as talking with people who have a keen understanding of how important a fast website is. So make sure you treat your business right for the physical dealership, as well as making sure you treat it right for the virtual dealership online. If you're always cleaning your facility, making sure that your showroom looks great, the cars out on the lot look great, do the same thing for your website. It is your largest traffic generator, the largest traffic generator your dealership will receive. So what does that mean in a strategy? What are the things that you want to do right away? So you want to make sure analytics are installed properly and that you use to measure what's happening on your website. So what does that mean from a consumer interaction? Are they finding your inventory? Are they looking at multiple vehicles? Or are they hitting one page and leaving the website? And a matter of fact, a short visit is what is called a bounce. So somebody hits your website, they see your phone number, they call you, they leave the website. That is termed a bounce. The goal of your website is to demonstrate value, differentiation, and show your products and services. So when you're looking at your analytics, are you seeing a good amount of vehicles? Are they looking at your service offers? Are they looking at any offers for payments or anything that the manufacturers are extending in the way of, here in the States, their rebates, incentives, dealer cash, consumer cash? Does your website traffic indicate that they're going to the right page? And are they spending a reasonable amount of time on your site? Okay. Why buys are very important. That is your staff, how long you've been in business, how you treat the community, especially if you're heavily involved with the community, charity, other aspects. Do you sponsor a hockey team? Do you sponsor a youth baseball team, etc.? So those are things that people look for on websites aside from inventory and special offers. Look again at your marketing sources, especially since you're going to be tracking them with those UTM codes. Are they delivering the customer that you expect from your email marketing? So let's say you're doing database marketing 2, 3, 4 times a month. Service offer, sales offer, an update, a technician gets certified, etc. When you're communicating that via email, do you have a link to that page that's tracked? And because this is your database, these are your warm customers. They've already done sales or service or both with your dealership. So is the behavior proper? And if you see anything different, so for example, let's say you send out 6,000 emails, 3,000 get opened, 50% of those go to offers after they look at whatever page you're promoting. Let's say it's community involvement. or let's say it's a special offer from the manufacturer. Do they then go to the appropriate pages? Do they then click to inventory? Do they click to the explanation of the offers? Do they click to the staff page if it's promoting somebody that is now 10 years at the dealership that is featured in that email marketing? So watch the performance of the marketing and what they do on the site. Does it generate a phone call? Does it generate a form fill? Does it generate a live chat? So you want to look at all of those things. And if one of those marketing sources is not working effectively, low time on site, low repeat visitors, etc., what you might want to do is change the marketing next time. Don't do it the same way. And if this is a third-party source or a company, a vendor that you're spending money with, let's say a listing site, and you're not seeing conversions, or you're not seeing them look at what you believe is the appropriate amount of vehicles, the appropriate amount of pages, you might want to assess that vendor and look at if that expense is warranted, if you need to cut that expense, if you need to partner with them to come up with a new way of delivering traffic, etc. So always think about, and it's tough to draw a direct line in what's called return on investment or ROI. However, it's very important to work with them to see if something can be fixed, tweaked, changed for the results to be better. Why are we doing digital marketing? It's to sell a customer, service a customer, or keep a customer, or attract a new customer. So all of your marketing needs to deliver that ultimately over time. And keep in mind, as you see search trends happen, leads and phone calls tend to follow those things. Unless you're giving away a car or making 6 months of payments for the customer by the dealership, if there's something that's really amazing, you're going to have a direct relation, an almost immediate relation between the marketing and contact. Typical marketing tends to have a boost, or if there's more advertising from the manufacturer, more advertising from you, it tends to build traffic first and then online, and then it delivers phone calls, leads, forms, chats, texts, etc. So do remember that the measurement is very important, especially if you find an area that is not returning well on that investment. And in regard to conversion, those form fills, the phone calls, etc., look for conversion opportunities on your website always. Sometimes it's changing the color of a button on the website. Sometimes it's changing the order of the photos. So when you have your inventory on your website, is it exterior photo multiple times for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of those photos? Or is it 2 or 3 primary exterior photos and then it goes into the interior photos? Because people are looking for features of the car where they sit, where they drive, where their kids sit. So it's very important to make sure that you have an effective order of your photos when you're putting those online. And the way to test it easily and beautifully with digital marketing is you keep it one way for a month or 2 months, and then you make changes in the orders of the photos. Or if you're using video, do you do the video before the photos? Then you get to look at your website performance and see, did people spend more time on the vehicle pages? Did they convert more? Did they do more phone calls or more forms, etc.? So you can make dynamic changes on your website that impact whether somebody contacts you or not. So it's very important to remember to measure, assess by marketing source, and then look at what drives an actual hard conversion. Those hard conversions are listed here on the, and there are others that are listed here on the 3rd bullet. So once you have a, pretty much idea of what your normal conversion is and what traffic does, start playing with different things, start flipping levers. and seeing if you make a change on the website, does it look different in the behavior? Does it generate more customers, or does it generate the same or fewer customers? So these are all things that we want to make sure that you're modifying and measuring on your website. So how do people find you? And how is your website more relevant? And there's a really good database on Yandex, also on Google with their Webmaster Tools blog, where you can find best practices. At the same time, there's some norms or some very accepted practices that drive more relevant traffic. So one of the most important things you can do away from inventory and special offers and service is publishing new content to your website. That can be a blog, that could be a community article, that could be the new model landing page, especially if you're referencing authoritative sites. If there's a high traffic site in Russia that recently reviewed that model and you're that brand dealership, it's a good idea to maybe take a quote from that article. We want to attribute it to that article, to that magazine, to that publisher, and then also have your own words to say about that vehicle, why you find it either so effective, so safe, so efficient, so popular, etc. So monthly, you want to publish new content to your website, and you want to make sure it's also very relevant for recent search terms, local search terms, or awards, accolades, recognition, etc., or things that you know that matter to your customers locally. One of the things that we've seen very effectively used as content on a website has to do with properly installing child seats into cars. Most statistically, child seats are installed incorrectly into vehicles. And so we have found that over time, publishing an article about that, the new in-car technology, especially with apps in the center stack or where the customer interacts with the vehicles, touch screens today, multimedia. It's very important to publish articles about that that are not simply duplicating what the manufacturer said. So don't take a manufacturer article or press release, duplicate it, and publish it on your site. You definitely want to have what the store says, what the owner says, what the general manager says, etc. Even what your customers say. There might be a customer testimonial on that page about the new in-car tech. So make sure you're publishing content that's relevant to you, your dealership, the brand, the OEM, the manufacturer, and also for the community. Some dealerships, even away from email marketing, have found that some non-automotive content is very relevant to their customers and very popular locally. So it's an area you get to play with, especially if you have a blog, but you also want to make sure you have new model pages, comparison pages. It's another way of taking traffic from another dealer brand. If your car, truck, van compares very well with a competitor, it's nice to have a our car versus their car page on your website, because you might get some competitive clicks over time from the competing brand to your website and have people consider buying your car versus the competitors. You want to make sure that technical assets are done regularly. So when you add a page to your website platform typically applies whatever search engine optimization or page name, dealership name, that type of what's called meta structure, META, to that page. It's very important to make sure that you're optimizing the page for consumers to find it. So there's on-page text, but there's also the technical text. And here's an example of that. This is a Ford dealership that we're looking at their website, and you have the ability to look at the page code. Here under meta, if you want to search for the term meta, you'll see meta name, meta title, meta description, and also meta keywords, which you'll see on this line right here. By the way, most search engines have ignored. Google no longer looks at keywords. Most search engines have stopped looking at keywords inserted into the meta description of a page, the technical description when you add it. Your website editor will have an area where the title, name, and description can be applied. It might be an SEO plugin. It might be native to the page when you're updating your website or when you have your website company update it. Keywords do not need to be entered. The search engines are looking for the keywords on the actual page. So Google is looking at, Yandex is looking at, Yahoo is looking at the text on the page to build relevancy over time, plus the title or the URL of the page, as well as the technical description of the page. So make sure that you are spending time to update your search engine optimization technical aspects of your website. So for example, let's say a same brand dealership comes in 30 kilometers away that wasn't there before. That used to be part of your marketing area, but now you have to split that marketing area. Okay, it's very important with SEO, with the technical descriptions, how to position as well as the on-page text, but definitely the meta technical description is where most dealerships miss out on that opportunity, is to properly describe what that page does and how consumers can benefit. So when you look at this description, this is made for the search engines, in addition to the text on the page, to describe what people will find on that page. It's very important to update that for competitive reasons, exclusive reasons. It's important to update meta because model years change, or the way that your service department has updated. Let's say you went from 10 service bays to 14 service bays. You wouldn't want to only update that on a homepage splash or banner saying, we can service 40% more cars now. You're going to want to make sure that that's updated not only on your service page, but in the meta description as well. So any facility updates, staff changes, anything that's technically oriented around that page that you're adding to your website, make sure that those are updated. Building relationships for people to find your dealership with well-followed authorities, vehicle enthusiasts, top sites, etc. People who are creating video, blog posts off your website, the real big vehicle enthusiasts. It is a really good opportunity to create those connections with those people so they can drive links, off-site links from an authoritative site, and Rambler, RootTube, etc., Facebook, those are all very high authority sites. In the 0 to 100 ranking, those are in the 90s, near 100. So when you get a link from that site, somebody doing a video post about you, somebody writing a blog post on a top enthusiast site, that builds a authoritative link to your website. So wherever you can build links in, and not just on the sites you control, your own business listing, your own video page, your dealership site is not counted, but any references to that via links. What you want is high authority sites to link in to your website. So those are called referral links, and you want to track those from those websites. If there's a particular post you're having somebody do for you, you can track that with a UTM. However, simply having authors write content that link in, or videos, for example, anything coming from another site, it's going to come over in your source medium report. You do not necessarily need to track those with the additional UTM tracking. And make sure that anything that you have with local community involvement, charity, sponsorships. If you recently have fed any people during the crisis, anything that gets attention to your dealership, you want to make sure that you have those assets out there that are pointing to you, but also make sure you put those on a community page or your About Us on the About the Dealership page, or build a new one every time you do a new community involvement. People are looking for that, and that drives very favorable traffic to your website. And again, if it's from another website, it does get tracked as a referral over to your website. The more effective you are at allowing people to find your website, the more search engine optimization value, the more credit your website gets. And that also dovetails really well if you're doing paid search ads, whether it's on a social media site or in search. The stronger you are from SEO, the less money comparatively that you need to spend to drive traffic to those pages. You can spend paid advertising dollars to go to pages that you need more traffic to. So aside from big authoritative or enthusiast sites, what can you do? Local citations, again, one of the biggest being your Yandex and Google business listings. That's going to drive usually the most amount of traffic away from just organic search, having those listings in organic search. Your business listings, any review site where people are talking about your business, leaving reviews, any kind of local community or association, or if you have a regional dealer association, any place you can list your business's name, address, and phone, those are sites you want to own and manage. So you're able to update your hours of operations, differences between sales and service. If you want to link to a featured page instead of the home page of the website, etc. Those are important to make sure you're managing all of your citations, and once again, using that UTM tracking code. So when it comes in to your analytics and you can see the behavior, you're able to track it. Your inventory, of course, that's what people are looking for by and large. So whether it's on your website, whether it's on a third-party listing site, whether you have it on another site through affiliates, you want to make sure that your inventory has the right photos. If it does use video, that it's very light, short, and efficient. Seller's notes are very important, and the search engines crawl your vehicle inventory, and especially when people relate search, when they find your inventory and they browse through the vehicle description, they're looking through the photos, those are the top assets aside from price or payment. So it's very important to make sure all of those features are enabled. If the vehicle is certified, if it's been safety checked, et cetera, if there's any type of certification that happens. In the US, we have Carfax and other services that do that, Kelley Blue Book. So if that car has a seal of approval or some kind of certification check, auto check's another one, you want to go ahead and make sure that those features are enabled within your inventory. Offers and specials next to inventory is usually the next most traffic aspect on your website. So make sure you always have offers for sales and for service, no matter what. And make sure that your offers, if you spend a fair amount of time and always have a very aggressive offer up there, that you have very competitive offers and that you put your most important ones based on traffic to the top. So always have offers, again, for both sales and service. Service drives a lot of traffic itself. You usually get more, in general, dealerships do, even though they compete with aftermarket service, service is one of the big generators for traffic and parts also, especially for profit. So make sure that, excuse me, those pages are updated, that they're relevant, that they're recent, and explain why somebody should come by your dealership for service instead of aftermarket service. And the last one is email marketing. And this one is usually skipped. Dealers do send out their database marketing. This one is skipped as far as tracking. Again, anytime you have a link over from an organic or a paid asset, make sure that it has tracking so you can see what that does. And as a matter of fact, this is a good time to look at analytics. So we are in a United States Ford store here. And by looking at this report in their acquisition, this is switching to their source medium report. The channel just shows whether it was organic, whether it was paid, whether it came over from Ford.com, your OEM, it came over from Facebook or YouTube. Here, we can see each one. So we can see not only the Google pay-per-click, but because we track Facebook ads, we can track Facebook pay-per-click campaigns. Otherwise, it simply comes over as a m.facebook, i.facebook, or facebook.com. But because we track that campaign, we're able to see the difference. So here's links from standard Facebook traffic right here. And then here's the paid campaign. You can see this campaign generated almost as many pages on the website, but 50 seconds, nearly 50 seconds more time on site, and got a higher vehicle conversion rate, contact rate, etc. So we're able to split that traffic up because we put a unique tracking, a UTM code, urchin tracking. The U is short for urchin. The UTM tracking code allows each source to be measured. Otherwise, it comes over as direct traffic, and you cannot split that traffic up if it is not tracked to a source. For example, if somebody types in your dealership URL directly, or you type it in, that comes in as a direct source. If somebody clicks an email link to new specials, because you have a big offer, and that's not UTM tracked, that goes into direct, but they clicked open an email. So you want to make sure they're tracking that unique to that marketing source. So that gives you the ability to, you can see here that we UTM tracked also their Google My Business listing, etc. So there are ways to track every link that you control inbound to your website through that UTM code. And you can have your email marketing, your business listing, affiliate marketing tracked where it's not coming from a separate website. So that ability to measure and change your marketing based on what consumers actually do on your website is very powerful. So what's the next step in our 7 rules? Using market and competitive data to give you a strategy, find out what your competitors are doing. And this is not only same brand competitors, every dealership is a competitor. You already know that. So tracking what other dealers, including if you know for a fact somebody that's called a successful dealership or successful group, there are ways online to measure through tools how effective it is. Plus the market data is data you have, it's data your manufacturer has. Your rep comes in and tells you how many sales you might have lost to another dealership 30, 40, 50, 60 kilometers away. It's very important to use that data to adjust the website, adjust marketing. So using third-party data, using your own data from your website, and then online tools. There are third-party sites. We like to use, for example, SEMrush to look at both organic and paid search competitive data. We also use Google Search Console through the Webmaster tools. So when that code is installed on a website, it gives data that Google Analytics can't. Google Analytics only shows you the clicks you got and what they did on the website. Webmaster tools and other tools, other third-party tools, Moz, M-O-Z is another one. They allow you to look at the clicks you did not get or clicks that went to a competitor that may have turned into a sale or service for them. So you definitely want to become knowledgeable and start using a couple competitive measurement assets, some of those tools online, to look at what not only are you doing in a competitive space, but also what are your competitors doing? Where might they be doing a better job with paid search, organic search, etc. And then based on that data, you want to make small, not large meta updates, but small updates. For example, links, on-page text. These are minor updates to existing pages. You may even want to add a new page, considering blog posts, etc. But there are things that you'll want to do to change to see if they have an impact in your local results, in more customers' eyeballs you pull in more clicks to your vehicles or to your offer page, etc. So using competitive data to come up with a strategy is very, very effective. And with the fact that websites, unlike traditional advertising, unlike a TV ad, a print ad, you can make changes to that, where once you have a billboard ad outdoors or a very expensive TV ad, a video ad, even pre-roll before videos online, many times you can't make quick changes on those. Looking at competitive data, you can make those quick changes. Okay. So in making those small changes, you get to measure in an A/B test, did those changes affect how you were positioned against competitor? Or did they show you that those changes were not as effective? You need to either go back and revert to the way it was, or did you actually just need to tweak something else a little differently? And again, watching competitors is so important. Another piece of software that we use to look at competitive data is Rank Ranger. So we connect all of the Google assets, Moz, other tools to that, or they do it as the software. We plug in the connections, plug in their local citations, their Google My Business page, etc. And then we get to track specific keywords against competing domains. So we love using Rank Ranger. We've been using it for upwards of, might even be 4 years now, at least 3 years. And it's a very eye-opening experience to look at how we compete with competitors on a model basis, on a service search, on a car dealer near me search. So there's a lot of very actionable data that allows you to make changes, watch competitors, look at how your tracking is over time. If you do have an investment for content strategy, for search engine optimization, you should see those positions, although you may also see bounce rate go up, but you will definitely see more impressions and more traffic coming to your website. There are times that you're going to start conquesting customers from outside your area, so they may not spend as much time on your site. They may choose to leave quickly, but with a content and an SEO strategy, especially if you're doing an investment there, you need those third-party tools to not only calculate the impact as well as your own analytics, but you can see the impact to competitors that doing that kind of content strategy does and how it works. So let's take a look and draw these 7 rules back together and which areas are the most important. So rule number 1, maintain your website, update your website, measure your website. This is absolutely critical. And a part that you've not heard from me yet in this area is because we tend to look at strategy and sales and service in 30-day cycles. How was our month? How was it year over year? How was the quarter, year over year for the quarter? It's important with website performance, especially because sales and service follows traffic to the website. It's not instantaneous most of the time. So especially the first visit to your website that somebody may have. So it's very important to, in your analytics, in all of your dashboards, to start looking at data over longer periods of time. We prefer 75 to 90 days, and this allows us to look at trends overall, especially competitive trends, but overall website performance against goals. For example, if we helped out the manufacturer and took a model that was slow selling, take on 15 extra units for them or 10 extra units, did the campaigns to assist selling more of those vehicles actually take place? Did you get more traffic to those vehicle detail? Did you have tax on those vehicles because you had an extra aggressive price or a lower payment or something like that? So do look at trends over time. Always compare your expectation with what happened analytically on your website, as well as leads, because that goes to CRM or your database, instead of looking at things only in a 30-day cycle. So get really comfortable with analytics and make sure you can measure everything properly. So the second most important of all of the rules, definitely are 7, is measuring all aspects of your website performance, tying that into leads, revenue opportunities, measuring your calls to action, looking if you need to change the buttons. Again, it could be color, it could be location. And remember to audit everything on mobile and laptop, desktop. Mobile sites do interact differently. Even if you have a responsive site, especially even if you have a mobile first site, which are brand new, there's very few of those vendors in the United States. I don't know if there's any Russian mobile first vendors, not just where your website can respond, but it's actually built for mobile first, not desktop. So you want to look at all of your performance metrics, which call to action buttons are being clicked, which areas are converting, which ones are not, and making sure that when you play with A/B testing, change the offer, change the button, that you measure it 14 days, 21 days, a month and a half, and see if those improvements actually did happen. Track all of your inbound marketing with a UTM code, all of it. You've heard this from me probably 7 to 10 times already, including with examples in Google Analytics. It is critical for you to measure, to separate every different campaign, whether it's social media, email blasts, third party doing some marketing for you, lists you buy, etc., that those links come over tracked so you can separate, hey, that was a good campaign, that campaign didn't work so well for us. And also make sure that you are dynamically naming those campaigns. So not all of your email marketing is now tracked, but not which campaign was it. So if you're doing 3 or 4 different emails per month, you definitely want to have a different name for each one of those campaigns. Looking at your social media presence. Hopefully you're involved right now, both creating static social media as well as videos, showing how exciting it is in the facility, showing the new models, doing walk around videos of the different models, showing features of the vehicles, etc. It's very important that you have a presence talking about your people, talking about the community. If people love you and they are willing to do their own happy testimony video, love that. So make sure that you always have something happening on social media. You always also want to make sure it is not just about the cars and about the brand. Definitely have posts about your people, community, charity, etc. The next step, number 5, ensure your inventory is set up properly. And something that you didn't even hear me hit on yet, and that is lighting. Lighting is very important. You may not have the choice to shoot it in a nice studio with perfect lighting, and you have to shoot it with other cars in the background. But make sure, especially for interior shots, you can do what's called diffusing the light. If you get diffusion film and put it over the front window, the windshield, and the back window of the car when you're doing interior photography, you eliminate hot spots. So make sure the lighting, the photos are good. The ability for you to get the right description about the vehicle. Again, not just for your site, but anywhere that your inventory is also syndicated. Make sure you're set up competitively for pricing or payments, whichever way that you feature. This is absolutely essential. Watch and track your competitors. Now, this is dealers and non-dealers, especially since service is so heavy aftermarket. You definitely want to track from a keyword perspective, a website perspective, and an overall marketing paid and organic perspective. What are your competitors doing? This is a dealership thing. This is an aftermarket thing. And depending on what area you're in, you might have those factors change over time. So through software, you want to be able to track, or at least look at, if you don't have the ability to track, but you can go onto the software, type in a competitive URL, and look at what they're doing, estimated from a traffic perspective, a paid search perspective, et cetera, and look at those competitive assets and use intelligence that you have from the software as well as from your manufacturer, friends that are not competitive, as you all talk with each other. If you're a couple 100 kilometers away, you might want to share best practices and share who those competitors are and how you're combating those competitors. So there is usually an underutilization of software to look at those competitive assets, and it's very, 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 very important to do that, especially for non-dealers, aftermarket tire, aftermarket service, independent dealers, etc. And last but not least important, it's very important, but last on our 7 rules here, rule number 7 is manage all of those listing inbound citations. Make sure that you have the right website, the right phone number. Many times a dealership would have had a number from 10 years ago. It got on to 3, 4, 5 listing sites. That number now belongs to a completely different company, a veterinarian, a glass installer, an indoor skydiving building or rock climbing building. You want to make sure that you manage all of your phone numbers, the links to your website, your contact information, the location pin on the map, and that you're responding to reviews. Not only getting reviews, but responding to reviews. Positive reviews, neutral reviews, and negative reviews. Those local citations and review sites are so important to your business, and auditing those and making sure you're not missing phone calls or visits. And we've had literally hundreds of instances that we've been consulting with dealerships for 12 and a half years. We've had hundreds of instances where the phone numbers are not correct, and the customer will still come into the dealership and say, hey, I wasn't able to get a hold of you. This is the phone number I was calling. And it's a number the dealership never had, or they did and got rid of, or it was incorrectly put onto the listing site. So that's your 7 rules to turn rubles from digital marketing into money in your pocket for your dealership. There's another 3 million and change. However, these are statistically, factually, the most important ones you can do to make sure your dealership stands out, making sure you're getting traffic, making sure you're converting that traffic to contacts, phone calls, in-store visits, lot visits, etc., and that you're properly set up against your competitors. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you've got a lot of good questions for me, and looking forward to interacting with you, answering your questions, and making sure that your dealership is set up right. Thank you.